Thanks. Seems to me that science uses the techniques it needs to use to answer specific questions, and sometimes with real-world evidence it gets reversed, that something is a technique, and therefore are you going to use the technique, whatever. The answer is you have to know what question you're asking, and increasingly those questions can be quite broad and answered with various different types of real-world evidence. Many years ago, when I was still a clinical academic, and to take Greg Simon's approach, hard to believe, but I had a worse suit and a worse haircut at that time, that I wanted to ask the question, does a transient infection cause a transient increase in the risk of a cardiovascular event? That could only be answered using electronic health records. You couldn't answer that question another way. So for me, it's about the question first and then the technique applied to it, as in any other aspect of science. So what do we need to answer when we're thinking about drug discovery and development? First question is, does it work and is it safe enough? And that, as Rob said, is normally done in really controlled situations. But the fundamental questions beyond that are, how well does it work? And how well does it work in comparison to other things that you might choose to do? And increasingly, how well does it work in relation to the combinations that are coming through? And we're going to see an increased number of medicines that need to be tested in combination during the development phase. The second question is actually, how should it fundamentally be used by patients, by doctors, by healthcare systems? And that requires a set of technologies which aren't normally addressed in a randomized controlled trial in a conventional setting. And so how you generate that evidence is a critical part of the entire process and only going to become more so. So as these technologies evolve, the place of what we're calling real-world evidence will be increasingly embedded in the process of drug discovery and development, particularly later stage development and then through into the market, where, and I'm on record of saying this both from my time in academia and in my job that I've been doing for the last 10 years, I reckon you know about half of what you need to know about a medicine at the time it's approved. So what are the things that we look forward to? Data capture increasingly outside a medical setting, so the things that really matter to patients, continuous data capture, so you're not getting intermittent results from people, data capture from medical settings, increasingly from electronic health records where you can get a lot of information, but on top of that, the ones outside the medical setting. There are some things that can uniquely be answered in electronic health records, but there are other things that can be uniquely answered with increasing use of wearable devices if they're reliable. And I think these are the areas we need to focus on. What can be answered using electronic health records? How can we make them reliable? And the same with the wearable devices. This is definitely going to change the way that industry thinks about trials going forward, and I think now is exactly the time to be focusing on this.